Hey everyone, Tenny Tolofair here, co-founder and director of acquisition here at XSITE Capital. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for watching this content. I have an interesting topic to share with you all, and that is what could possibly kill a deal. Right now, we have a chance and have an opportunity and been blessed to have gone through a bunch of deals on the road, those deals, putting in offers, doing buyer interview calls, and a whole bunch of stuff that have to go through the process. We've actually gone in and do due diligence on a bunch of deals as well, closed on a couple of deals, and in all of these, we've had a lot of experiences, right? So, what could possibly kill a deal? Gladly, we've not had a deal where we have under contract and it fell apart. But there are a lot of things that can happen during when you have the deal under LOI, which is letter of intent, and when you have it under contract, which is the purchase and sales agreement. Now, a deal can fall apart when you have it under LOI. Actually, when you have it under LOI, you really don't have anything, because LOI is basically a non-binding document that just says, hey, I'm interested in buying your deal. When you have a deal, is when you and the buyer and the seller have actually executed on the purchase and sales agreement. That document is binding, and that's when you have a deal. So let's say you have a purchase and sales agreement signed now. What could possibly go wrong? What could kill the deal? Well, there are certain things that's within your control, and there are certain things that's outside of your control. What is outside of your control? Economic factor, right? For example, currently we're facing a significant amount of interest rate hike by the Fed, and that is affecting a bunch of deals. A month ago, if you have a deal at a particular interest rate, now if you have that same deal, the deal will not perform the same way anymore, because the interest rate has gone up, and because of that, you have to go back to the seller and have a conversation about how you can adjust that. What we're seeing as of June 2022. The Fed is looking to increase in 2022 interest rate by another 75 basis points. That could significantly eat into your cash flow, right? And if it eats into your cash flow, it will affect your NOI, and the property will not perform the way it's supposed to perform. And then because of that situation, you might have to go back to the seller and say, hey, listen, the property is not performing the way I anticipated, and because of that, we might have to reduce the price. That could possibly kill a deal, because the seller might be like, no, I don't want to reduce my price, and you guys can possibly kill the deal right there. That's one. Two, natural disaster. Like the situation we had with COVID, during the COVID pandemic, there was a bunch of deals that was transacting that period, but everything was put on pause because of the pandemic, because people didn't know what was going on. There was a lot of uncertainty. People didn't know what was going to happen, how long it was going to last. But fortunately for the multifamily space, the multifamily deals were actually transacting. We actually closed one of our deal during the height of the pandemic in April of 2020. So deals can possibly continue during the pandemic. So I will encourage you to continue to go through your process when you whatever is going on with the economy or in any kind of circumstance. Just keep going through your process and be open to communicating with the seller. If you're a buyer, be open to communicate with the seller as frequent as you can, as things are changing. Okay, those are some of the things you don't have control over. Now, things that you have control over is you doing your due diligence from the seller side. For example, if the seller is misrepresenting data, you want to make sure doing your due diligence you're able to unfold that, because sometimes if the seller is misrepresenting the income or the amount of people that lives in the property or the way the people came into the property, you're going to fold that during your due diligence, and then that could possibly kill the deal, because the influx of people that came into the property during or before you started doing your due diligence, that could kind of possibly expose how the property is performing prior to you taking it under contract, right? Also, from your side as a buyer, some of the things that could go wrong is if you don't have your equity lined up, right? Usually you want to make sure your equity source is lined up before you have a deal under contract, because you have, like in the market that we're in right now, a lot of people put down what's called earnest money deposits. That means that's the money that you can lose if you don't close on the deal. So if you don't have an equity lined up before you have a deal under contract, there's a chance you can possibly lose the earnest money deposit and the deal can fall apart. So you want to make sure your equity is lined up and ready to go. Also, you want to make sure you check taxes the taxes is the reassessment of the property, because in a lot of states, once the property is sold, there's going to be a reassessment of the property for taxes. You want to make sure the taxes, you factor that into your underwriting as well. A couple other things that you want to check out: you want to make sure there are no environmental and structural problems to the property, and this could be you can unfold this during your due diligence. And if you find environmental or structural problems, those are things you can bring back to the attention of the seller and say, hey, listen, because of this situation that we found, we might have to pull out of this deal. Now, there's a lot of other things that the seller might not show you. You want to make sure you find those out, to the best of your ability during the due diligence, because once you execute on the purchase and sales agreement and you close, the property is now yours. Everything now is now your responsibility. So you want to make sure all of these things are things you check before you finalize a deal with somebody. Now, like I said earlier, a couple of things that can make a deal, just to recap, a couple of things that can make a deal fall apart: natural disaster, economic factor, the seller misrepresentation of data, doing your